Welcome back to Results Mastery. I'm Eric Schramm, and I'm going to take some time here in this video to talk to you about Level 1 Evaluation Reaction. Now, before I go into those, I do want to share a few of the resources. A couple of them have already been mentioned by Mark in his videos on business acumen, but I do want to introduce another one, but let me go over the other two first. The first one is The Bottom Line on ROI by Patricia Phillips. A very excellent nuts and bolts book on how to get to that level 5 evaluation, that ROI, return on investment. I'd highly recommend it. The next one, if you're wanting to dive a little bit deeper into level 5 evaluation, is Making Human Capital Analytics Work, also by Patricia Phillips and her husband Jack. Again, a deep dive into level 5 evaluation, and it really helps us to dive into how do we evaluate elements of our initiatives that maybe are a little bit more intangible. And so I would highly recommend this one. And diving into what we're going to be talking about over the course of the next few videos here, this Levels of Evaluation by Donald Kirkpatrick is Evaluating Training Programs by Donald and James Kirkpatrick. Obviously this has a training bent, but the reality is, and I think Julie even mentioned this in a previous video, is that the levels of evaluation can be tailored towards any initiative within an organization. Again, a resource that I would highly recommend. Now, as Julie's already mentioned, we're going to be walking through the 4 different levels of evaluation. Level 5 is something that Mark talked about in his previous videos on business acumen. And again, some of the resources that I just shared with you will be very helpful in getting more information around those. But I'm going to be diving into level 1 reaction. How satisfied are people in really getting to what is or what are people's reactions to our particular initiative? So as I mentioned before, level 1 evaluation really measures reaction. It's what are the participants' reactions to this particular intervention. You know, in the training world where I come from, we call them smile sheets, right? Basically, we have the feedback form at the end of our session that just gauges people's reactions. We try to get a few other bits of information that dive a little bit more into level 2. But really, in order for us to dive into anything beyond just their reaction, we've got to do a bit more work to try to get that information. So what are the participants' reactions? You know, oftentimes we'll be online and doing some shopping or maybe on the phone, and all of a sudden somebody will pop up and say, hey, stay on the line, we'd like you to fill out this questionnaire or something to that effect. What they're wanting to gauge is satisfaction, customer satisfaction. The issue is no less uncomplicated, really, in level 1 evaluation, just gauging the reactions of the participants within your particular initiative. So what questions does level 1 evaluation answer for us? Well, really, it's quite simple. It answers the question of, were the participants satisfied with the experience? Whatever the initiative was it a good experience or was it a poor experience? I'll get to why that really matters in beyond the obvious of, man, if it's not a good experience, they're not going to enjoy it. But was the initiative valuable to them? Another option is, would they recommend it to their friends? Would they recommend it to other employees? If it was a training initiative or a product launch or something to that effect, what was the gut reaction of the participants in that particular initiative? You know, a couple of the ways that we can glean this information or collect this data are surveys and questionnaires. Again, I talked about those smile sheets that we use at the end of training, or feedback forms, those kinds of things. So simple, basic questions, and in class we'll give you some really good concrete examples of what does that look like for you. Although I'm sure you've probably experienced this before, going to a training initiative or receiving any kind of question and answer to gauge customer satisfaction, those kinds of things. Donald and James Kirkpatrick, in the book that I mentioned earlier, had this to say about the connection between level 1 and what we'll get into in the next video, level 2. They say if participants do not react favorably, they will probably not be motivated to learn. Positive reactions may not ensure learning, meaning that just because someone has a positive experience or a positive reaction doesn't necessarily mean that they're learning something. But negative reactions almost certainly reduce the possibility of that learning actually occurring. And so there is a dynamic link between how someone enjoys a particular initiative that we are trying to get off the ground or trying to get moving, whether it's a training initiative, a product launch, or any other kind of initiative organizationally, some change initiative that we're having. And are they going to learn something from that and diving into that level 2 evaluation, which we'll talk about in the next video.